In today's video, we're going to talk about how to become an REO agent for banks. Now, you might be a real estate agent and you want to look to work with banks such as Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and you're looking to get access to their REO properties. Well, in this video, we'll kind of walk you through and provide you the guide on how to do that. In the second half of this video, we'll share some key traits of successful REO agents. So by the end of this video, you will learn and can implement the steps we share to establish yourself as an expert in the REO field. And you can build a successful career as an REO real estate agent. So with that, we'll start off on the first topic, such as understanding each of the different banks' REO processes, right? We're talking national banks today, such as Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, Fannie Mae, et cetera. But Paul, you want to lead us off with maybe, high level view of like, what's the Chase REO process look like? Let's pick on them.
Yeah, we'll look at Chase. Chase is a big one out there, and they're all over the country. So the big ones, they use are Equator, and Equator's been used for forever. That was like a short sale platform mostly back in the day, but it's used highly for bank REOs right now on REO listings. So that's going to be your biggest one. Then you have Source, which is another big source out there. And you have ServiceLink, and ServiceLink is a huge company now, and they've gobbled up even Hudson and Marshall, right? An auction company that we utilize. And what they do is they're able to then list their properties on that platform as well. And you could become an REO agent and have them listed on that platform. Then you have ResNet, another big one that's been around for a little while as well. Those are your biggest platforms that they use, and you kind of got to get familiar with them. And they're mostly user friendly. You can go in there and take a look at it and play around with it. But it does there's a little bit of learning curve for sure.
Yeah, that's good points. What are your thoughts on, building you, the real estate agent, building your REO credentials?
Super important, right? You want to get your credentials. You want to get certified in foreclosures, even short sales, right? They kind of go hand in hand, right? A short sale can end up turning into a foreclosure if it doesn't go through. So those are big things you want to do. You need to have some experience too, right? Just being an agent as well, and having listings out there, but specializing in distressed properties. So distressed property class is a big one because a lot of these properties are distressed in distressed condition, not just distressed sellers, but distressed condition. And you got to be, able to have some contacts as far as contractors, be able to make repairs on these things. You can't go in there without any of those contacts. It's super, super important. BPO, right? BPO is probably the biggest one that you and I look at, Mike, right? We want to be able to get somebody who's really got a great understanding. BPO is a broker's price opinion, and it's their opinion of the property as it stands in its current value. And what they'll end up doing for the bank, they'll give them, I should say, the as is value and maybe the after repaired value if they did a full rehab on the property. So super important to have all those credentials, get certified and all that, because they're probably not going to look at you if you don't have those credentials.
Yeah, and then if you're new to the foreclosure process, we've got plenty of other great videos on our channel, just walking you through from missing the mortgage payment to the sheriff's sale until ultimately how a property becomes an REO. So plenty of great content on our site. We'll put a few previous episodes on to help with that education process if you're new to the game here. Paul, what do you think about, networking with banks directly or their partners? Like, what would be a good inroads for an agent looking to get an REO listing or a flood of REO listings from a bank? What are some good stepping stones from a networking perspective? Or is it just signing up for those platforms that you talked about earlier?
I mean, signing up's really, really important, right? That's step one. But really the next most important is doing your own due diligence and contacting. So let's say there's somebody local in your area, an asset manager that you see on the Chase's website that has an REO listing, and you want to reach out to them and let them know that you'd be very interested in becoming an REO agent, and just let them know that you're going to go above and beyond the call of duty, obviously, and be diligent with them, follow up with them, maybe see if they're local, which they may not be, but if they're local, you might want to even arrange to meet up with them and buy them lunch, get them a coffee, try to schmooze them as much as you can. But you constantly want to be in contact with them, maybe connect with them on LinkedIn too. So LinkedIn is a great resource as well. You could probably find a lot of your asset managers on LinkedIn. Do a search on there, generic search. You might have to pay for the premium to be able to get a higher level there, the premium access to LinkedIn, but that would be another great resource for you as well. But definitely contacting them directly, going on the websites, whether it's Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, contacting those asset managers, because their numbers are on there. It's probably not their cell phone, it's probably their office phone, and then their emails are on there. So that's going to be the easiest way for you guys to get started.
And then once you do get that opportunity, right, you got to deliver. So you get your first listing, you got to, know the numbers. You mentioned BPO earlier. Just share some stories, some great REO agents that we dealt with for you 20 years, right? These people know a certain property that we're interested in, what the as is value is if it needs repairs, what the value is if it's fixed up, totally brand new, newly renovated, and maybe it just needs paint, flooring, appliances, something like that in the middle. They'll know all three values, and they're usually pretty good. And they're able to offer local market comps. They'll have a pulse on where the market's heading. So once you get a listing from a bank for an REO, you gotta know your numbers that we talked about earlier. You gotta, if there's repairs that come up that need to be done, you got to be able to manage that, come out of pocket a little bit until later, and then work with other buyers in closing the deal for the bank, and just basically delivering on everything you promised already leading up to this point.
Yeah, and get back to that BPO, which goes hand in hand with what I want to explain here. You got to get really good at comping. So let's say the property is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, called 1,670 square foot house. So when you're looking at other properties on the MLS, or even if you use Zillow, you can really narrow down that search. Look for properties that same type of bedrooms and bathrooms, same square footage, same size lot, because the lot can make a difference. Whether it's a quarter of an acre or an acre and a half is going to make a pretty big difference. So you want to be really good at comping and understanding, obviously, condition too, to add that to a BPO, right? That's going to be a part of becoming a good BPO agent.
Yeah, that's a great point. I feel like there's no middle class with REO agents that we deal with sometimes. They're either like really good or from a comping perspective, or they missed the mark. I just remember we were reviewing a recent REO property from a newer area, and the agent sent a comp report back, but there was no like square footage filters on it. So essentially I was looking at a shotgun blast out of town instead of like, hey, this property's in this specific development and they're all 4-bedroom, 2-bath houses. And these are the real comparable sales in the last 90 to 180 days. Whereas this agent, what they provided us back was essentially a shotgun blast of the town. That's not really comping and knowing your numbers is a good example there.
Yeah, and it's not helpful to us, right? And it wouldn't be helpful to an asset manager if you're given that information. If they're wanting to test you out and see if you'll be a good agent, they give you an address, they give me a comp value, and you're given a shotgun blast like that, they're just going to not even probably bother with you, right? They're going to want to be.
And then not only you're giving bad information to the asset manager on where to set the reserve or listing price, right, to sell the asset, you're not helping out a repeat buyer like an investor, like some people like ourselves, by giving shoddy information to us, right? So it's a two-way street there on poor comping.
Yeah, and how often we get that, Michael? We talk about look at this. Now we've got to refine it. Now we've got to go in and do our own comping using Zillow if we don't have access to the MLS there and our numbers. And that's just, it adds an extra level of frustration.
Yeah. But we do on all properties comp our own values because it's a absolute trust but verify. But it's nice to have an agent's local expertise aligned with yours. But when you get shoddy information, it's tough to do that. You got to reach out to find another agent most of the time.
Agreed.
Yeah. Agreed. And then kind of wrap up, I guess, once you get the listing, we talked about knowing your numbers and everything. What are some things, after your first deal that you consider reaching back out to the asset managers to maintain those relationships and follow up?
So yeah, I mean, if it's after you do one deal with them, right? So,
exactly. Yeah. So after you got your first one, you proved something. Hey, I want more. How do you go that day? What recommendations do you have?
and just tell them you're willing to travel, right? Because a lot of times, depending what state you're in, you could travel pretty good distance from property to property. Let them know that's something you're very willing to do. You have no problem doing that, even though you have to get there weekly for photos. For the banks here, because they do want weekly updates on property condition, anything going on, make sure everything's secure, make sure the yard's mowed, make sure no pipes freeze if it's in the northern part of the country. So let them know that that's something you're very willing to do, and they're going to be appreciating that big time, right? Because a lot of people want to stick into a constricted area. A lot of these agents don't go out of their local area. So if you're showing you're going to go above and beyond like that, you're going to get more listings.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully everyone got a lot of value out of this video. As a gift to you, we'll share with you another video on, how do I get REO listings from banks? It's a deeper dive into the conversation that we had today. So I'll put that description or that link below in the show notes. And hopefully you got a lot of added value today. If so, share this video, smash the like button, and check out that next video that I just mentioned about.